World Cup downhill bikes, gotta be expensive, right?
It's often said to be the Formula One of mountain bike racing, and they're super specific, really focused, and they've just got one thing, one MO, and that's to get down with their rider, hopefully, down the track as fast as possible.
That's true, but maybe the cost isn't quite as much as you think. So today we're ranking them from the cheapest to the most expensive in the elite field.
Let's go. That focus means some of the aspects of the bikes means they're super advanced, so they spend lots of development money on the suspension systems, they spend loads of time tyre testing, yet some of the other parts of the bike aren't that advanced, it seems.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the most common group sets we see in the downhill paddock is Shimano Saints. That hasn't been officially updated for 10 years, since 2013. And one of the most expensive bikes we're featuring today has a seat post they found in a parts bin. So without further ado, let's get to the cheapest one. So to start things off, it's a Saracen Myst being raced by Madison Saracen Factory Racing. It comes in at £7,200. They are actually racing on a prototype frame this year. It's currently unreleased. The current Myst retail price is £2,400. So I bumped that up by 10%, added on the rest of the build, and arrived at that.
Nice, and they're racing it with Fox suspension. They've got Shimano parts, and related to Shimano, they've got Pro finishing kit.
Just over £7,000 for a World Cup downhill bike. It's not too shabby, is it?
One that's been on the podium too. It's pretty good. Next up is the Canyon Collective FMD racing team, and they're racing the Canyon Sender CFR, the full carbon race bike, and that's just squeezing ahead on price of the Saracen, and that's being raced by Tahnée Seagrave and the rest of that collective FMD team.
That's got Fox and Shimano as well, DT Swiss wheels. The Fox 40s just squeezing in at just under £2,000. So that's quite a big proportion of the £7,250 price tag. One of the biggest teams in the paddock is Specialized Gravity. However, one of their World Cup winners, Jordan Williams, is actually on the old demo frame, and it doesn't cost a bomb. We've estimated that build at £7,700.
Be interesting to see if they come out the prototype bikes that Finn and Loic are running at the moment. I mean, it's the amount of racing that they've done on it and the kind of like built-in cost to develop it and produce it. I feel like it's going to be a lot more than one of the cheapest bikes that's out there. And it's worth pointing out actually that Jordan's demo is custom, so it's got slightly different tubing. We think a slightly taller or longer front end. Next up is the YT Mob. YT Industries are known for their great value, and so it's no surprise that the YT Tues that they're riding at World Cups is one of the cheaper frames out there. But the Crank Brothers Synthesis DH wheels really bump up the price on this one, some really blingy bits. So bumps the price up to £7,700.
Danny Hart and his teammates from Cube Factory Racing are racing on their Cube 215 prototype frame this summer, and that we estimate at £8,100. So there's always a little bit of a leeway for the prototype frames. That's got a mix of Fox and Magura parts. They're also one of the few top-down teams racing on an air shock on the rear. Up
next is GT Continental Factory Racing. The team are racing the brand new GT Fury DH bike, and it comes in at £8,200 with a great value stand flow wheel set. Obviously the ubiquitous full Shimano Saint group set, as well as the hotly sought after Continental tyres.
Next up is Trek Factory Racing's downhill division. So they're racing on the Trek Session, and a lot of it, the drivetrain, the brakes, the tyres, the suspension, the frames, are quite expensive, but there's some big savings like the wheels. They're the Bontrager Line DH30s, they're aluminium rims. They cost only 550 quid. It means the whole bike is only £8,500.
Continental Nukeproof Factory Racing. They're racing the really pretty Nukeproof Dissents under Rónán Dunne and Chris Cummings, and they come out at £8,500.
That's equipped with SRAM X01, the downhill group set, as well as a whole host of Nukeproof in-house parts. Pivot Factory Racing's prototype frames are incredibly eye-catching, but they aren't slated to go into production. That's more for pushing through custom sizing, geometry changes without having to redo a carbon mould. So the production frames you can buy cost £3,000 RRP. So adding that up with their carbon Reynolds wheel set comes to £8,700.
The second Trek team is the Rockshox Trek racing team. This is Valley Hole's team. It's racing with the secret, not so secret, black box Rockshox suspension. So this is where Rockshox do all their development. They're racing on the Trek Sessions, so it's an aluminium race bike, one that you can buy. They're racing on Conti tyres with some DT Swiss EX511 aluminium rims. And all of that tried and true tested kit comes in at £8,700.
Scott Downhill Factory have a pretty fancy Scott Gambler frame paired with XTR brakes, but the relatively affordable Raceface Atlas wheel set, which comes in at £700. That makes the whole bike cost £8,800.
Up next is MS Mondraker and their aluminium prototype. Mondraker have been running this prototype bike for about a year, but it's got same Fox suspension that they've run for years and years, same Shimano drivetrain that they've run for a while, and the same Renthal cockpit. Judging from the price of the production Summum, which is actually carbon, that comes in at £9,500, and that's got E13 wheels and Michelin tyres, the same as the race team use.
Commencal Muc-Off by Riding Addiction. They're racing on a Commencal Supreme V5. I'm not really surprised to see this near the top end of the list today, because they definitely are a brand that really drive their prototyping and testing and development.
That's right, and they've done a lot of prototyping and development with the new MVDH rims that they're running. And going off the pricing that we've got already for the old MVDH rims, those are going to cost £3,000 alone.
So that, combined with the TRP brakes and a TRP drivetrain, adds up to £9,800. Santa Cruz Syndicate, they've been racing on the V10 for years and years. The current version they've got is actually a prototype, and it's called the V10.8. The current V10 you can buy costs £4,000, so we've done our usual trickery of bumping it up a few percent, and the whole bike is coming in at £10,000.
Included in that price are some beautiful Reserve 31 DH wheels with the delightful Chris King hubs, which are adding in a lot of expense, but that with the Bergtech components for the cockpit, Shimano drivetrain and some very nice Crank Brothers pedals all contribute to that £10,000 total price.
Unno Racing's Unno Everframe comes with an Envy wheel set and an O-chain. So this is where the builds are getting really fancy, and they're made in Spain in limited numbers as well. So this comes with Bergtech carbon seat post, Exo 1 DH cassette, Envy bars, and it's yours for £10,100.
Up next, Continental Atherton. The Atherton's AM200 is their made in Wales DH bike. It's got O-chain, it's got Galfa rotor and pads, it's got Hayes Dominion brakes, it's got an FSA cockpit, and it's got a Stans wheel set that costs £1,200. Wow. But overall this bike costs £10,200, and that's not taking into account any custom options. That's an extra on top, but it is handmade in Wales.
Giant Factory Off-Road Team are the runner-up today. This is a surprising result for me personally, but the price is pushed up a lot by the Giant Glory Advanced Anniversary Edition frame set, which has an amazing retro paint job. I think it's reminiscent of the old ATX1s in the 90s, and that costs £6,000 on its own. Add in the rest of the parts and you reach £10,500. Taking the top spot, it's intense factory racing. This seems apposite for me. Like, it's Aaron Gwin. It's one of the most winningest World Cup downhill riders in history. And he's been racing on an intense M279 HP6 prototype. It's now launched as a new M1.
And that bike's got lots of E13, full TRP drivetrain. It's also got a really fancy Kogel ceramic bottom bracket. But to juxtapose that, it's got a seat post out of a parts bin. But all those bits adding up to £10,700.
The conclusion that I've drawn from putting this list together is actually that maybe the real money that the downhill teams are spending is kind of on the testing and development side, rather than just sort of buying the most expensive, being supplied with the most expensive kit and sticker price.
Yeah, it's interesting that the price difference between the cheapest and the most expensive isn't actually that huge. So in comparison to the XC World Cups bikes that we've looked at on GMBN, and then GCN's looked at tour bikes, where there's also a huge difference between the best value bike and the most expensive in both those different rankings. In the DH world, the ranking's actually really quite close, and there's not that much big of a price difference.
Yeah, that's a great point actually. They're all within £3,000, and it makes it very hard to choose which one you would want to try. Let us know which one you would like to try in the comments below. As usual, thank you for watching. Give us a like and subscribe for more World Cup bike content, and we'll see you next time.